Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me for this acrylic painting tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to paint a Moody Seascape with the Lighthouse. It's going to be a lot of fun. Got my husband Mark with me.
Hey there, everybody.
He's man in chat tonight, so if you've got questions, you can ask those while I'm painting. Let's get started. Alrighty, so I'm using a 9 by 12 inch canvas today. This is the Fredrix mixed media canvas boards that I like so much. They have kind of a low texture coat here, so they are gessoed and white. They come white, obviously. I've painted them, this one with a light coat of burnt sienna, maybe about a dime's worth or so, and lots of water and a little bit of glazing liquid to make it stick really well. And that just gives me kind of a ground to work on. And then I've gone ahead and transferred on my drawing. I have these traceables available on Patreon. They're $2 a month and unlimited downloads for all the 700 plus videos that we've got on YouTube. So I don't know if there's traceables for all of them though, so caveat to that. It's probably 500, so still plenty for $2 a month. Way more than you would ever need probably. But anyhow, so I have transferred on this with a little bit of Sorel transfer paper. It's like graphite paper. Don't use copy paper, but this one is water soluble. Comes in this nifty thing. I'll show you that. I'm not being sponsored by any of these people, so Fredrix sends me free canvases, so there are only partner besides Fredrix and Princeton. Princeton sends me the brushes, which amazing, and they featured our owl tutorial in their email yesterday or today, I think. So yeah, so if you missed that witchy owl thing tutorial, you can check that one out on my channel. Click my name or my photo. It'll take you there. All right, so these are the brushes that I'll be using. I'm going to be using an angle brush for possibly some of the trees and some of the details. And I'm going to try out this new brush that Princeton sent me. It's an Angle Bright in a number 6. It's a little bit smaller than a 1/4 inch angle. And then I've got my 3/8 angle here, 3/8 inch angle. These are the VelvetTouch and the red handles. I've got my two blenders in the 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch, and then I've got a couple of the stipplers. These are the best stipplers, Deerfoot stipplers, the only brand that I have found that actually have this kind of nice dark. I'm not exactly sure if it's hog bristle or what they use, but some of them are too soft. These ones work really great for foliage and trees. So I've got a 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch in those. Select, and then I've got a 10 bright and a 2 round, and then a 2 flat. This one's Aspen. These ones are 6100 series. Really use what brushes you've got. You don't have to go out and buy all these. I'm just kind of mentioning the ones that I will be using tonight. Might not use all of those. We'll just see as we go. I haven't painted this ahead of time, so you're going to get to see me figure it out as we go. And that's the fun of the live streams. Nothing could go wrong, right?
Nothing.
Never. So, but if I make a mistake, then you get to see me figure out how to fix it. So, win-win. All right.
Hey, let's go over our colors.
Yes, let's do that. Carbon black, burnt umber, burnt sienna, yellow oxide or yellow ochre, cadmium red light, and quinacridone magenta. Really just use any red that you want for your lighthouse. I'm going to mix these two together to get the bright red for my lighthouse, but doesn't have to be these two. You can just use what you've got. And then we'll also use those colors in our rocks down here. This one is Ultramarine Blue, Unbleached Titanium, Titanium White. The Zinc White is a transparent white. It's great for clouds, so I've got that. But again, if you don't have it, just add more water to your Titanium White and you should be fine. This one is Glazing Liquid. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. Since I've got my main areas blocked out, and I didn't do all the little details. In fact, I didn't do any of the trees here because I just find it's easier to do trees freehand than to try to fit it into a traceable. But that's just my personal preference. But it will help us to have these rocks in here and the lighthouse kind of, so we know kind of where to put our clouds and things in the sky. So I'm going to start out with white. And the reason I start with the ground is just because it helps me see my values. I'm starting with kind of a mid-tone ground, so it's going to be kind of maybe on the light-ish side, but somewhere in here, probably closer to that on my value scale. And then that way, when I put my lighter colors on, I can tell if I'm getting them light enough. And then with my darker colors, if you kind of start with the white canvas, then anything in here is going to seem dark. But if I start here, then I can kind of gradually work to both sides of that, and it's just a little bit easier to see what we're doing. All right. Hope that made sense. Mm-hmm. Good. All right. I'm going to get white here, and I'm going to add a little bit of... I want a little bit of blue, but I also want it to be kind of cloudy, moody feeling. So we want it kind of a gray. I'm seeing a little bit of green in these clouds. So I'm going to start out with just a tiny, tiny touch of yellow ochre. And maybe do that down here. And I've kept it really light. I've got to kind of go fairly light since I've got this dark background here. So I'm going to be working that. My lighthouse is actually, it's white, but it actually is, because of the lighting in this scene, is kind of a gray. It's darker than our sky. So we want our sky to be the lightest behind it. And that'll make our lighthouse stand out against it. So I'm going to go ahead and go on either side of it carefully. And again, if you just want to do your whole sky and then put in your traceable, you can do that too. You can kind of just mark out maybe this line here and then do your sky, not worry about your lighthouse at all, and then paint the transfer on the lighthouse detail onto your sky. So that's another way of doing it. But the traceables are a great way, especially if you're first starting out with painting. Maybe you're not super confident in your drawing skills. They are a great way to just go ahead and be able to jump right into painting. Painting and drawing, two different things. So don't ever have anybody let you, make you feel bad for using the tools that are available to you. That's just dumb. We use what we've got, and if it makes it easier to paint and you want to learn to paint, you don't have to know how to draw to paint. With all the different resources out there right now, it's just so much easier nowadays to do art just in general. So why would you limit yourself to, well, I can't paint until I know how to draw, That's just not.
What I do is I just take the paintings you've painted and put my name on them. That's the easiest way for me to do the paintings. So.
He just adds a little stickman figure to my... Yeah,
just kind of paint over the signature
paintings.
in the bottom. And
he just draws a little stickman on the hammock, and we're good.
And voila, it's my art. Hey, real quick, you said it was the ground is burnt something?
Burnt sienna. So it looks very red, doesn't it? Burnt sienna has this reddish undertone. It's really pretty. So, and I kind of contemplated just using it for my red, but I did want a little bit of that pop of bright red in here. So I went ahead and went with the more saturated red because I think it'll give it a little bit more drama. Okay. So you can see here where it's trying to dry. So I'm going to have to leave that. I won't put too much more on here, but I'm just going to go ahead and kind of lay out sort of my lightest areas in my sky. And I don't mind having this reddish color come through. It doesn't bother me. I really like having, that's why I chose this color, because I think a lot of the rocks have it, and so it makes sense to have a little bit of that color in the sky. So you won't actually see it though. It's interesting how your eyes adapt, and your eyes will actually see things that aren't there, see colors that aren't there, and that kind of thing. I was reading a book recently, and it said that our eyes have this constancy of memory. I can't remember what it was called exactly. I need to look it up. But basically, well, I don't remember the actual term for it.
You can't remember the thing about memory?
Shut up. You're using burnt umber and ultramarine blue here.
Welcome to the club.
Welcome, yes. Welcome to my life lately. Okay, so I'm going to use the ultramarine blue, a little bit more of it, and a little bit of that yellow oxide, and that'll make my green a little bit more of more like a phthalo blue green. It'll give it a little bit more of a green cast. I don't want it to be green necessarily, but just a little bit more grayed out green. But basically what this art teacher would do is set up a still life with just basic shapes, plain styrofoam shapes. And then they would put a carton of eggs in there, white eggs. And then he would turn a red light onto the whole scene. So everything was lit up in pink tones. And then he would have his students paint it. And first, he would set it up the day before with the light, and then they would go home and then come back the next day, and then he wouldn't mention the light at all. He would just have them paint it. And they wouldn't see the light. They would not see, he said, 100% of the time, brand new art students would paint the eggs white. Everything else was pink as they saw it, but they would paint eggs white, and they would paint it that way because eggs are white. And when he would ask him to explain why, and they wouldn't even see it when he pointed it out. They would be like, no, those eggs are white. So our brains will trick us, and they fill in the information. So if we have a little red in our sky, is what I'm saying, our brains are going to say that sky is blue, even if there's a little bit of red there. And the red will kind of help, or this, orangey tone. It will help unify your painting, even though you can put whatever colors you want in your painting, is what I'm saying. And you're still going to interpret it. Our brains will still interpret it as a sky or as or whatever, as long as we kind of get our road maps right, as far as, our shapes and things, and we get some water down here and our rocks and things, and we'll see the lighthouse, and our brains will be like, okay, that's a sky and that's water. Even if we had our water pink or whatever color, we can play with color however we want as artists, which is really, really fun. It's one of my favorite things about doing these kind of paintings is, just see how far we can push these colors and these things without, breaking our brains. So, anyhow, I don't know if that made sense, but I thought it was kind of a fun story when I read that. I was like, wow, I'd like to try that sometimes with in a tutorial or something, but I don't think we could make it work the same way, in a video lesson.
That is something
okay, but
that
see
I would
how
have
pretty
never known.
What?
That is something I would have never known without you.
There you
because
go.
it was...
You're welcome.
Because you said you read it in a story. No.
Yeah, Mark doesn't like to read. Can read. There's a difference.
Yes, I can
read. Mm-hmm. Doesn't prefer to read. I know, as we were talking about, I was reading a series of books that I had read previously, and there was like 16 or 17 books in the series, and the new book came out, and it had been like 5 years, and so I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to read that whole series again. So,
who is this person?
He's like, that's more books than I've ever read in my entire life, and you're reading them again. Yeah.
So kids, it's okay to read. Or not read, whatever you want to do.
You do you. That's okay.
Exactly.
No judgy. How the artist ended up with the engineer, we'll never know. But it works. We make it work.
It was green polyester.
3 grandkids later, we're still going. Mm-hmm. 38 years later. Mm-hmm. All right, making a little bit more of the yellowish color, white, with my yellow oxide. Any kind of lightish yellow will work. And like I said, yellow ochre, very similar to yellow oxide, so that'll work too, but that yellow will really it actually make our white look a little bit more vibrant, believe it or not. So I think that looks really good so far. I'm making these clouds a little bit, maybe a little bit darker, so I've left it kind of similar color to the reference, but look at how the reference, I'm definitely even more blue than the reference. The reference got a lot more green in it. So, and I've gone a little bit darker right here down at the shoreline here. So I made a little bit of the darker color there, and I may use some of that darker. Let's go ahead and mix up some color with a little bit more yellow this time, a little bit more blue, and a little bit of that burnt umber. The burnt umber and blue will make a gray. The more brown you use, the more gray it'll get. And then if you go past mid-gray, it'll start going brown. So we're keeping it on the blue side. We're not adding a lot of the brown, just a little bit, enough to darken up and neutralize that blue. And that yellow is just making that blue a little bit closer to like a phthalo blue, like a mid-tone blue, or a more greenish blue, but not super green either. So it's kind of go in between, and I'm going to darken up. Yeah, that's nice. That's some dark. I think this brush is not the right one for this, though, so I'm going to go ahead and use this color. Maybe get no, I don't want a little glaze. I want this to cover. If I had glaze right now, it won't cover very well. So I'm going to go ahead and use this darker color over here on this side and bring it down. I have not cleaned out my brush at all, so I still have, like down here, I still have some of this lighter color. So as I'm painting this darker color on, as it goes away, I'm going to end up, see how it's lighter now, because that lighter color is still kind of in the belly of my brush here. So I'm going to use that darker color, though, up in my corners and just try to blend it out. I'm not worried too much about it being a smooth blend here. I'm just trying to get some interesting brush strokes happening. This is the 12 bright, or 10 bright, I mean. I don't know if I mentioned that when I grabbed it. I get going and I forget. Get so excited about painting. Sometimes I forget what I'm supposed to be telling you guys. But I always find out in the comments when I forget. That's okay. I get it. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
I try. I do the best I can. That's all I can do. It is. You try painting and talking and explaining what you're doing. Sometimes it's not easy.
So it's kind of like the painting, with the colors and your brain filling in the spots. We're hoping that your brain fills in the stuff that we don't say.
Exactly. Well, painting is using the right side of your brain, but when you stop to think about your colors and mixing colors and things, you're switching to the left side of the brain, because your left side of the brain is where it kind of stores the formula of, okay, I need a little bit of this color and a little bit of this color to get a new color. Those kind of things are not stored on the right side of the brain. So when you're painting like this, you're actually flip-flopping back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's great for your brain, but it's really difficult to do, and sometimes it takes you some time to remember your words when you're doing that, because the words are over on the left side too. So it's an interesting process of painting live like this.
Yeah, we changed roles one time years ago. And we were both like, why aren't you doing better at your job?
Right.
And we changed roles one day, and ever since then, we don't give each other
any kind of yeah. No more smack talking.
Exactly.
It's like, your job is very hard. Yes.
Talking and painting is definitely not easy.
Well, it goes against our brain chemistry, It's kind of just a little outside what we're built for. Okay, so looking pretty good. I want to connect these two a little bit. I kind of made a little bit more green, but I don't know if I like that as well as I think I like this color better with a little bit of more of the blue in there. I think if I wanted a little bit more cerulean blue color, I could use like a cerulean blue or a phthalo blue to get a little bit more of that true green color that I'm seeing in my reference, but I'm not worried about it. I don't hate this color, so I think the ultramarine blue. I was trying to kind of just limit the amount of colors that we needed to mix tonight, but phthalo blue might be a good one to add because we're gonna want a little bit of a blue green in our water too. But we'll see as we go. If we want to add it at the end, we can. All right, so I'm gonna leave that, let it dry. It's not gonna take a lot of paint. Like I've got probably 2 layers on here right now. Need to leave it alone for a little bit, let it really settle in and dry before I try to add more layers on top of that. So while that's drying, let's go ahead and grab, I think I need kind of a mid-size brush. I didn't grab like maybe that, just something that'll fill in like a 6 flat, so a little couple sizes smaller. And that'll kind of help me get into these rocks and things. So what I want to do is add my darker areas because I'm going to dry brush my highlights on in this area of my Seascape down here. So I'm going to get black, burnt umber, and maybe a little bit of Quinacridone Magenta and Ultramarine Blue, and I make a dark kind of purpley, depending on how much of each one of these that I use. I might make a little bit more of a purple over here with just those 2, the Ultramarine Blue and the Quinacridone Magenta. Makes a really pretty purple. You could always grab your dioxazine purple too if you wanted to. This one's more of a red violet purpley tone, but if I add more blue, it'll go more blue violet. What are you laughing at?
I'll be your dioxazine purple.
I don't even know what that means.
Well, you said you can grab your dioxazine purple.
Oh, gosh.
Then I reminded of the line from a Tombstone.
Huckleberry?
Well, it's actually Hucklebearer.
Hucklebear?
Bearer.
Bearer.
The Hucklebearer is somebody who holds on to one of the huckles, one of the handles on a casket.
I did not know that.
Yes. So I thought it was always Huckleberry, but it's actual Huckleberry. Oh, now you got me saying Hucklebearer.
Interesting.
So there you go, people.
Okay.
This is why you tuned into this art show. You will not find this on any other art channel, I guarantee you.
For a reason. Oh, goodness. All right, so this is blue. This is like purple. This one's got more brown, so I'm just going to kind of play with these colors. And this area in here is almost black. So I'm going to just kind of start with that. And then as I come up, maybe use a little bit of glaze and just kind of glaze it over so I can still see my drawing lines a little bit maybe. Try to kind of keep that drawing. And again, if you want to go darker with it or just paint this whole area dark, you can put your lines in again later using one of the lighter colored Sorrel paper. I get the multi-pack that has black, white, blue, yellow, and red. And so these the white one or the yellow one you could put over these darker colors and be able to see your rocks. So you could paint this whole section in dark and then do the light thing and just add them back in. So different ways of doing it. Let's go ahead and use the more blue down by the water maybe. Just makes sense that maybe this would be a little bit more blue toned. And just trying to kind of keep the dark areas where I'm seeing them in my picture. Just looking at my picture, seeing where my darkest areas are. And up here, I'm going to get a little bit of yellow and Ultramarine Blue and make a green. Make a dark green. Add a little bit of the darker color there. And use that up here. And kind of like along the line of the trees. Just dabbing. I'm not worried about any detail right now. I'm just trying to kind of block in what I'm seeing in my reference as far as where my darks are, where my light colors are coming from. I'm trying to leave a little bit of the light colors where I need to go back in and add them. Dispense or so. All right. Keeping it kind of a mid-gray here. All right. Go. I love it when we have this really dark up against the really light. It's really pretty. Very moody. Makes it feel very dramatic. You have this really, really intense dark and really, really bright white. It makes it pop. That lighthouse is going to stand out against that sky really well. Okay, getting more of my darker color. Let's do it down in my water here, or right rocks by the water, I should say. And there's kind of a dark water line coming up, and then an area where there's kind of more of a mid-tone gray. I'm going to go ahead and get this sky gray, maybe a little bit more blue. Mix that with what we've got here and use that. And do like a blue-gray on these ones that are closer to the water. And when we put those lighter highlights on here, they're really gonna pop because we've got this nice dark background. And we can leave the lighter orangey background showing in places if you want to too. It's up to you. The background color is not necessarily all about like being visible, but you actually will see it even though we're covering it mostly up. It does affect the colors that go on top. So it just adds like a little bit of a glow underneath all of our colors. All right, let's go ahead and use this down here. Still using that brownish color, maybe get a little bit of that purple. There's kind of a reddish tone to these rocks. Maybe get a little bit of that burnt sienna and add that in. A little bit of the reddish color. There we go. Okay, now let's do our water and go with Ultramarine Blue and my yellow Oxide. Probably 2 parts blue to 1 part yellow. If we had a brighter yellow, it would make a more intense blue here for us, or more intense kind of blue-green. I think this will work. that'll be good. And I'm going to use that here. Putting the water in side to side. And kind of where it meets the rocks, I want it to be kind of flat. And we're going to darken up the water really dark right along that water's edge and add some darker shadows to it. So this is just trying to get a color down. So this is our color from our sky pretty much. We just didn't add the burnt umber to it to darken it. So this is a little bit more saturated than our sky color. But I may use a little bit of this in my sky. Just because I think I want a little bit more of this green color. Up there. Okay, that looks good. Let's go ahead and I'm going to use some of this dark the blue with the black and burnt umber here. Blue, the black. Ultramarine blue and black makes Payne's gray, so it's a really dark, nice gray color. I'm going to see if I can get it. I don't think this is going to stick very well. I probably need to wait. I was going to add a little bit of black to this, but I think I'm going to wait until it dries totally to try to add the black. All right, so our sky should be ready to add some more detail. And I'm going to switch to a brush that is made more for stippling. So I'm going to grab the 3/8" blender, or the 3/8" Deerfoot stippler, I mean, not the blender. And I'm going to get some of that watercolor, the blue, ultramarine blue, and yellow oxide. That's all this is, those two colors. And I'm going to get a little glaze. That'll make the color go on a little bit more transparently. You could use water instead if you don't have glaze. And I'm going to kind of tap this on where I want a little bit more depth in that color and use it to kind of blend out the edges. And now the other thing that I can do at this point, now that I've got a good layer down, is use the Zinc White. Start using that Zinc White. Now the Zinc White is transparent, so anything that it gets mixed with is going to be much more soft than the the titanium white. Titanium white kind of overpowers things. The Zinc White will keep your colors much softer, and for clouds it works really well because it just kind of it has it kind of a cloudy feel already. So I'm going to kind of bring those down here. I don't want to cover too much of my white, so I do want a little bit of that white kind of popping around my lighthouse, but I do want kind of a cloud to kind of cross behind here. That gives depth. Your clouds are going to get smaller as they approach the horizon line and be larger up at the top. So all these ones up at the top here, we're going to make much larger and more imposing. And they're going to kind of go off the edge of the canvas and you can't even see the whole thing. They're so big. And then these ones that are closer to the horizon line are going to be really little and just kind of bare little lines and things. Okay. Zinc White here. I'm just going to kind of use that Zinc White to kind of push the paint around to kind of set that color down, and now I'm going to kind of push it around with the Zinc White a little bit. That definitely wanted a little bit heavier color over here because we've got such heavy trees on this side. I wanted a little bit more going on with our sky, or a little bit more contrast with our sky, just so that it kind of closes it in a little bit more. Feels a little bit more enclosed. So I'm getting the titanium white now. I'm going to use that to kind of help push back over the top of some of these clouds. right here, transition right here between these two sections here. Now, we'll have tree branches in the way, but I don't want any hard transitions, because you might be able to see it through your tree branches. It might look weird, so we'll just make sure we have a nice soft transition throughout the whole sky. That's looking pretty good. So this titanium white I'm using to brighten up the areas where I want a little bit more pop. Just making sure that I've got maybe this area around my lighthouse. I'm gonna go over again just a little bit, because I had yellow in it before, so I'm just using white this time, so the white will be even more bright than what we did before. I think that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and, that kind of, hasn't been blended out right there yet. And I think I'm going to use a little bit more of my Ultramarine Blue. Maybe a little bit more blue and some glaze. And we'll see what happens here. Use a bit of that. And just use it to kind of tint the sky up there. A little bit more blue. I didn't use the yellow this time. I just wanted it a little bit more, maybe blue. Okay. Nice. All right, I think I still want to transition right there, so I'm going to try a little bit of the Zinc White and see if that helps kind of soften up that transition. You can put it over that dark area. It won't cover it too much. It'll just kind of soften it slightly. And then if I really want to cover it, I'll use my titanium white. So I'm just going to kind of go back and forth. Now right there, it's trying to not lay any color right down there. It's lifting on me, so that color must not have been totally dry before I started scrubbing over it. So I'm going to get some white so that it kind of blends in with that white that I'm seeing in the canvas, and just kind of slightly tap it, not scrub it all. The tapping will kind of help. If it kind of go a little thicker with my paint, I can get it to stick over that area. And that can happen if you're, like I said, blending these areas and your background hasn't dried fully yet. It can lift in certain areas. So I'm going to get the titanium white and the zinc white, and I'm going to go back in and just kind of add a few little bits of pops of brighter color peeking through my clouds here and there. This isn't necessarily a cloud. This is just kind of sunlight kind of peeking through the clouds. So my sky is white instead of my clouds being white. My clouds are gray. Okay, I think we're pretty close to where I want to be on there. All right, I don't have time to spend too much time on that. It's already almost an hour, so I'm going to call that good enough. And let's go ahead and work on our rocks. This is dry, and I'm going to get a brush that has a little bit of texture. So I'm going to grab my, I think I'm going to, I don't know, I can use either one of these. They're both kind of firmer brushes, the Aspen or the Willow, the blender. But this one's got more of a rounded shape, and I think I want the flat edge for my rocks. So I'm going to try it with this one and see how it goes. So, and there's greenery and things, or greenery. They don't look green there, but there's plants in here, foliage. So I'm going to use this brush for the plants and use this one for the rocks. So, all right. Let me do this. Let me mix up. I need more blue.
You're doing good.
Am I?
Yeah,
Okay.
while I'm over here doing my fact checking, so
What are you
according
fact-checking?
to Snopes, I'm wrong. It
You're
was
wrong about
it's an urban myth about the hucklebearer.
Oh, okay.
I knew you were worried.
I was.
I don't want a bunch of people walking around. saying
Never
the
heard
wrong
of that
thing.
at all in my entire life.
So the term the hucklebearer does refer to a pallbearer.
Oh, does it?
Yes,
Okay.
in the South.
But it wasn't Huckleberry.
But it's
in the movie.
huckleberry, which is alluding to an early 1800 something
It's a song. I
story,
think.
and it's meaning basically him telling Wyatt Earp, "I have your back no matter what you decide to do. So I'm your man." Basically, it wasn't a threat to the bad guys. It was.
But it was just in the movie, right? Is it actually a
yeah,
quote?
they don't have a record of it actually being spoken.
Okay. So we're
But what is reality?
arguing about a movie line.
Is this real life? Ask David.
Oh, jeez. It's yeah. It's like when I see this is one of my biggest pet peeves. If you want to pet peeve me,
Yes.
you quote Jane Austen with the quote from the Pride and Prejudice movie that was not taken from her book. It's not her at all. That said anything like what was in the movie. I can't remember what the line is. It's something about you bewitched me heart and soul or something like that. Not in her books at all. Stop putting that on t-shirts with her
Exactly. With her name.
quoting Jane Austen. Not a Jane Austen quote. Like
You know what gets me is like when they attribute stuff to Mark Twain quotes.
oh, shut up.
No, I'm serious.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know,
No.
they'll say like, you want fries with that? Mark Twain. No, I don't think Mark Twain said that.
Now that's being ironic. So that doesn't bother me. It's when it's like read the
There-
book.
There is a line that will not be crossed.
Just read the book.
When it comes to Jane Austen, no.
Them's fighting words. That is not happening. If you
All right. So when you finish your painting here, put a nice Jane Austen quote in the upper corner. Doesn't matter if it's real or not, and send it to us.
Oh my gosh. Just make up some romantic saying and then
Exactly.
quote Jane Austen. No, why? All right. Am I a book snob? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes. Sadly, that
All
is
right,
true.
back to the painting show.
That is true. Okay. Yes, back to painting. Here we go. All right. So we're gonna use this. I'm sorry, I was just kind of cleaning up my palette here, giving myself room to work. So there's lots of grays here, and I could kind of go. I could go more yellow. I could go more blue. I could use the green. I'm going to use, I think, the green in my foliage somewhat. So, and I don't see a ton of yellow. So I think I'm kind of stick with kind of a middle ground gray and add some blue tones to it here and there. And then we'll have that reddish color coming through. So I'm going to mix the reddish color first, I think. So I'm going to use the Cadmium Red Light and Burnt Sienna and maybe a little bit of yellow oxide to kind of make it a little bit more peachy toned, more orangey, I should say. And then let's add some Unbleached Titanium. See what that does to it. And I can already tell it's a little too saturated probably. So I think I'm going to add a little bit more of the Burnt Sienna. Although in the picture it's fairly saturated. So I mean, it doesn't, but no, it's still a little bit too bright, I think. So I'm going to get a little bit of the burnt sienna there and add it to that main color. Yeah, that's better. Just more of a brownish red, brownish orange. Okay, and then I'm going to add a little bit of that to the lighter version too. Okay, that looks pretty good. I've got a little bit darker color that I can mix into, a little bit lighter. I always like to scoop it up and put it in a smaller spot, because if you lay it flat, the flatter you have, the more air is getting to it, and the faster it'll dry out. So if you kind of keep it in a little bit thicker dollop of paint, it won't dry out as fast. Little bonus tip there. Okay. So I'm going to just use what's on my brush here, or my palette knife, I mean, and grab, because the orange is going to counteract this blue. I'm going to use the Ultramarine Blue and this orange. And it makes sense that the orange color, if it's in the rocks, it might be in our darker areas too. So it makes sense to use it to make my gray. These are kind of almost complementary to each other on the color wheel. Little, slightly opposite each other on the color wheel. Scoop that color off there so I can use it. So they should neutralize each other pretty well and make a nice gray, or gray down my blue nicely. So let's add a little bit more of that orange to it. See what color we get. We're almost getting a mauve. Look at that. That's like really pretty, actually. Really pretty. Surprising what happens sometimes with, well, that's the kind of purple that you get by using a warm red instead of a violet red. Using that quinacridone, which is closer to purple, we got a true purple tone. By using this orangey red, we're getting more of a mauvey purple. It's got a lot of the warmer tones in it, so it's a really warm purple. So that's not what I want for my rock color. So but we'll leave it there. We might use it. It's not going to hurt anything. But I do want a little bit more. I'm going to use probably all of that. So I don't think I want, well, let's try a little bit of burnt sienna and burnt umber. We'll use both of those, kind of almost 50-50 here. And if I want a little bit more of a blue tone, I can add more blue to this when I use it, as I'm using it. But that looks pretty good. That's kind of it's really kind of just a brown almost. Let's add a little white to it and see what happens, though, because sometimes when we add white, it surprises us. Look at that. Nice gray, slightly blue, but not too much blue there. I think that's going to be really lovely on our rocks. Okay, I think that'll do. So that had burnt sienna, burnt umber, and ultramarine blue to make that gray there. And I like mixing grays more than I like using just black and white, because I feel like they just have a little bit more character to them. But you could surely mix just black and white if you wanted to. That's totally fine. I'm not going to judge you for that. So no rules. You do what you want to do with your painting. And I'm going to get a little bit more ultramarine blue there, and just a little bit of the burnt umber, but more blue this time, and have a dark blue-gray that we'll use for some of the rocks that are down here. Okay, scoop that all up, make it a small spot there. Using the palette knife also kind of wastes less paint, because you're not losing all of that paint that gets stuck in the bristles. All right. Yeah, so that's the difference there. You can see that it's got a little bit more of that almost purpley tone to it. All right, so this takes a little bit of time, but we'll be glad that we did this ahead of time, because then we can just rock and roll and grab our paints really quickly as we do these rocks. They'll come together really fast because we're not going to have to stop to mix colors. We'll have plenty to work with here. I'm going to get out a little bit more brown, burnt umber, and a little bit more of my blue, just because I didn't put out enough of them. I should know better. Don't want to waste paint, but you know, sometimes with certain things you can kind of, I should have realized I'd be using a lot of this because I was going to mix this gray, so, and use it in the blue in my sky. All right, let's do this. What time is it? Oh, we're still under an hour. Very good. Plenty of time. Okay, so let's start kind of midtones and work to dark. So we'll grab I'm going to grab a little bit of that. I think I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to, I didn't do a kind of a greenish gray. I might even get a little bit of black with my, if I do black and yellow oxide, I get a green. So I might do a little bit of that on some of these. Get a little bit of that gray. Okay, let's see. I'm starting out pretty dark here. I need to go a little bit lighter, but I want to kind of go light, quick, slowly build up the lighter colors. So just adding this a little bit of green here where I'm going to do my darker greens for the foliage. Get a little bit of that darker. Okay, looks good. Wipe that out. Well, I've got this color all up in here, so I think this was that gray that I mixed. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this brush since I've got it already mixed in and lightly dab. And with dry brushing, less is more. So you want to, I mean, my brush is loaded up with paint, but it's not globbed on there. You can see the bristles. You should be able to see those bristles pretty clearly, and that way you know you kind of don't have too much paint on here. And then I'm going to very lightly just kind of dry brush across, and dry brush just means kind of your brush is dry. It's not got a lot of wet thick paint on it. And the brush can have, like, you know, technically you're not supposed to have water even in your brush, but I sometimes cheat and do. You can still get the same technique or the same effect. But using a brush that is a little bit more bristly will help speed the process along, because it's going to already kind of look fuzzy, you know, have that kind of fuzzy texture. But I don't want to go too light too quickly, because then you kind of lose all your ability to add. Okay. So just setting my brush down and lightly scraping it so that the texture of the canvas and the texture of the brush adds little streaks of paint. That's basically what we're doing here. Not just letting the brush texture create our little lines. Makes it really easy with rocks and things to do, tree bark, all of that, using this technique. We don't have to go in and mix every little line. There's a lot going on in these rocks, but by doing it this way, we can just kind of boop and be done. You know, mountains. If you've ever watched Bob Ross, he used this technique a lot. His mountains, he would use it with a palette knife, kind of just scrape across. So you could use a palette knife if you wanted to. That's totally fine too. You get a interesting textures by using the palette knife. I can do a little bit of it and show you, but I set it along and kind of catches in certain spots and then leaves other spots bare. So it works really well for rocks and things. I didn't do too much there, but you kind of get the idea. And I'm kind of looking at my picture and where I'm seeing the lines of the rocks, and so trying to kind of go in that direction. So these ones I'm seeing the lines kind of come this way, and these ones are coming straight down. These ones are kind of angled, so trying to adjust my brush strokes to match those little adjustments that I'm seeing in the rocks, the lines of the rocks. Really easy. There's a big rock here that I missed. I don't know where I didn't put that in there, because it's up to there in the picture. It comes down and then comes back up, so I'm gonna put a rock right there. I think it wasn't in my traceable because I cut my traceable down. Okay, so putting a little bit of the midtones in here, some of the areas that I had previously left light. A little bit of blue there. Let's use this kind of purpley blue down here. Dabbing. If you kind of dab it, you get a little bit more like almost foliage texture, but then if you kind of drag it, just gently drag it across the canvas, and you get that dry brush streaking that we're looking for in our rocks. Okay, amazing, right? I mean, so easy. Trust me, you guys can do this. This technique will change your life. It's if you're painting, like, learn it, use it. It makes things so much easier. Don't have to do a ton of little detail. It just comes together really fast for you. But I think less is more. It's kind of like the clouds, you know. I think when people struggle with clouds, they're probably just using too much paint in their brush. So build your layers up slowly, blend them out as you go. And you can do this painting, I think. All right, cleaning out that brush. It's been sitting with paint in it this whole time. I'm gonna go ahead and continue to use this little blender. I think it's been working, so I'm gonna go ahead and use it with my orangey reddish color. And I think I'm going to use a little bit of this mauve that had a little, like the blue. Mix those two together, because I think the color that I want is sort of in between. And let's start using that on our water line. And it kind of follows the same line across, so it goes about the same distance up all the way across here. So just nice. We'll add more of it, and then we've got some of that background. This is really kind of almost our same color as our background, very similar. So it's peeking through. So that's why I chose the burnt sienna for our background color, because I knew that this color was going to really pop up against it. It's going to look nice. It's already in our background in so many areas, and it just makes everything kind of glow a little bit more. Okay. Nice. Now let's grab that lighter color. This is where it's going to get dramatic. But it's going to look really bright, but we can always tone it down. So let's go ahead and be brave. Go ahead and put it on pretty light colored. And then we'll, if we get it too dark or too bright, we can always glaze back over it, but we'll have the texture. We're looking for texture here. So keep it light. Ooh, look at that. But look at our picture. It is that bright. Mm-hmm. So you gotta have the light and darks to get that drama. Do it. You just have to blend it out. So right now it's there. There's not a lot of transition between that and the background. So I think I need a little bit of that mother color here. I probably needed to put a little bit more of that mid-tone in there before we did that light color. Now it doesn't look so bad. Right. A little bit up here. Okay. That's about all we're going to do. And then we'll put our lighter, it looks really bright right now too because we don't have our lightest gray on here yet. But once we put that on, it'll all look a little bit more normal. Okay, so I'm going to get Unbleached Titanium and a little bit of my gray. I'll spray my paints because they're starting to kind of get sticky there. I'm going to get that blue with the Unbleached Titanium. Make a lighter. It's not quite white. So I don't want to go necessarily that bright, but I do want it fairly light. I'm trying to make my top edge of my rock flat, and then I'm not worried about the bottom edge, but I want that top edge to be kind of smooth. So as I'm doing this dry brushing, I'm kind of pulling it down and then maybe dabbing so that I get a nice hard edge on that top of the rock. That'll make it stand out a little bit better, look a little bit more natural. See that? This is looking a little bit light, but it'll dry a little bit darker too, so sometimes it'll go on and look like too bright, and then once it dries, it'll be a little closer to what we want. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of put it on pretty thick here, or pretty bright, and then we'll see if we need to tone it down later with some glazing. Which I always like to kind of glaze rocks anyways, so I think that it'll look good if we glaze a little bit on it. And by glaze, I just mean we'd go over it with a thin layer of transparent paint in a darker color, and it'll tint it and kind of tone it all down and make it all kind of feel more natural. Blends it in a little bit. Okay, I'm using a little bit darker color here, just kind of ease the edge there, transition. Right. A lot of darker areas up here, so I'm not going to go too crazy with it up here, but there is kind of an area lighter. And again, kind of going along that top edge with a firmer line so that I get more of a straight edge right there. That will help. You don't want your rocks to look fuzzy, so they'll look a little fuzzy if you kind of have them stippled on the top. You're going to want a straighter line. Okay. All right, we're almost where we want to be on here. get a little bit of white. There's just kind of an area right in here that's pretty bright. I want to go ahead and kind of draw your eye in right here. How you doing, honey?
I'm doing great.
See you stretching over there.
Yeah, I gotta stay stretched out, hydrated. You don't want to pull a hammy.
While you're pushing buttons.
Exactly.
I know, I complain about my computer sometimes.
As you get older, you don't know what's gonna cause a pulled muscle, so you gotta be ready.
That's right. I know, sometimes sleeping, I pull a muscle while I'm sleeping somehow. I don't know how I do that, but wake up all sore. barely bend my knee.
I'm supposed to be refreshed, but I'm not.
Don't know what I'm doing to myself. Am I sleepwalking? What is going on? I'm sleep exercising, kind of running a 5K and going back to bed and waking up all sore. Oh well. Okay. Sorry. No, I complain sometimes about my computer, like if it's acting up, like, oh, it's taking so long, and then I'm just like, yeah, I'm doing this. I'm literally doing this, click, 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 click. And I'm like working so hard. Like, so frustrating. It's like first world problems. Okay. All right, I'm gonna get some of this green now, and I'm just gonna go ahead and tap in some of our foliage here with the green. I'm gonna get a little bit more of my yellow and use a little bit of that. The yellow on top of this is gonna really, it's not that different in value, so it's not gonna show up as like a real dramatic change, but it'll make a little bit of a difference there. I do think if I did this again, I might go ahead and add the phthalo blue or turquoise or something, because I think that I do like the kind of more neutrals, but I do feel like I would like a little bit more saturation with my green. And I can't get that with the ultramarine blue and this yellow. If I used a different yellow, I could too. Like I could have used like an Indian yellow hue or something like that. I don't know why I put that color down there because it's not there by the water, but it's all right. Okay. Get a little bit of that darker green. I can kind of push up and get some like little, looks like bushes there. I kind of lost my dark area right there though, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to get a little bit of the burnt umber and black and put that back in my darkest areas here. Okay. Okay, and then let's go ahead and put our highlights on this rock that's in front. Okay. A little bit of white. Bring that up a little bit more right there.
What?
Sorry, I'm whispering. I do that when I get into the zone. I'm fully in the zone here. Right brain mode activated. I get very quiet. Pulse goes down. It's good for your body. Maybe not so good when you're teaching, though. People can't hear me. I try to remember. Okay, getting some of that lighter yellow, lighter orangey color here. Going back in. I don't love that. Gonna get the darker gray here. Wipe that brush out completely. It's still picking up that light color. Okay, and then right here in the water, it's so dark that you can't tell where the water starts and the rocks begin almost in some of this area. So I'm gonna just really darken that up. And then pull side to side here. I'm gonna get a little bit of more of my Ultramarine Blue, and I have that burnt umber and black in my brush. I'm going to scrape it side to side here to create the darker shadows in my water. Kind of across from where that lighthouse is, there's a darker shadow that goes all the way up in the water there. And then some darker shadows over here where the trees are. Okay, and let's get some white and mix that in. Get a little bit of my yellow. So I want to get a color that's close to what I had before in my water, or this lighter color here. So adding a little bit of yellow to that blue. Very lightly dragging this. I think I'm going to use a different brush. I think this one is giving me too thick of lines. I just want kind of thinner lines. So I'm going to try with this brush here. Let's see if I can get thinner lines. There we go. Keeping them horizontal. Okay. And this is probably more sky than rocks here that we're seeing. When it's close to the rocks right here, maybe a little bit darker up close to the rock right there. So I may go ahead and darken up that area a little bit. Right up close to that rock, but as we get down here in the water, it's going to be a little bit more reflective of what's going on in the sky. So using that same color from the sky. The water is like a mirror. It just picks up whatever is going on around it. So if we're close to the shoreline, and you might be able to see a little bit of that shoreline, then you also, it'll tilt. So you've got, if it was perfectly flat, no waves at all, you might have a mirror reflection of this whole thing, or, depending on the angle that you're looking at it. At our angle is like this, so it's more facing towards the sky a little bit, because we're looking at it from above. But anywhere where the waves are tilting, you're getting this tilt. So that's why these, the lighthouses, even though the water may be facing us like this, the parts of it that are tilting towards that lighthouse are picking up that dark from the lighthouse. So we're getting this light faint shadow here too from that also. So but it's not like a perfect reflection of it. It's not the colors or anything like that, It's just kind of like a little shadow of it. Water is very interesting to paint. The more I paint it, the less I know about it. I feel like, it's like, it's mysterious. It does things sometimes that I'm like, ooh, why did it show that? But I think a lot of it has to do with that, that pivot of that mirrored surface almost, the reflective surface of it. And depending on the color and the time of day too, this scene is very dark and so there's not as much light hitting it. I do feel like I could go a little bit lighter though, looking at the reflection of in the picture. So I'm going to get a little bit more white, a little bit more of that yellow, green over here. Go just one bit darker, or one bit brighter, in some of this area. I'm going to kind of let them connect a little bit too. I don't want them to be just lines. I kind of want them to sort of somewhat connect somewhat. So I'm kind of doing just slightly curved lines, not perfectly straight, and slightly connected. Looks better. Okay. I definitely don't have the exact color that is in the picture. The picture is definitely more of a teal blue, and I'm not being able to get that teal with the colors that I chose in my palette, but we'll get it close as we can. All right, that looks good enough. Let's go ahead and I'm going to use this brush to do some of the darker bits on my rocks. I'm going to get maybe get my gray here that I mixed up before. A little bit of glaze. I'm going to go ahead and glaze in and use this glaze, just glaze and color. That's all it is. The more glaze you use, the more it'll cover. So where I want it really dark, I'll use more paint, and where I want it to be more subtle, I'll use more glaze. But the idea is to have this kind of transparent layer that we're just kind of tinting and toning, adding shadows and little bits of detail, like some of these rocks here have these veins that are coming through, and so I didn't paint those in, so I'm going to go ahead and use the glaze to do that, and it'll add a lot of detail to it without having to paint in all the little lines. And it also kind of just tones down everything and makes it all look like it's kind of melted together and part of the same scene. Everything starts to get a little toned, so you can see where I've done it and see where I haven't done it over here. How much more detail there is there just by this little bit of glazing that we're doing. And I've got my color fairly opaque on here, so it's not super thinned out. But I am still leaving some of that background color showing when I'm doing this. So I'm not covering over anything. I'm not painting opaquely over my previous layers. I'm going to get a little bit of this orange because I noticed that it comes up here that I kind of missed this area here. Okay. How's everybody doing?
Everybody's doing good.
Good.
How are you doing?
Awesome.
Oh, of course you are.
Very good. I'm getting to paint. It's always a good day when I get to paint.
We have a couple questions.
Okay.
So
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. One question that we have is, what is the best liner brush for fine details?
Okay. I have tried a few and they have failed me. Okay, it may not be your brush, it may be how much water you're adding to your paint. So try that first, because a lot of times when people say they can't work a liner brush, it's because they are adding their paint's too thick. So there's a couple ways to go with liner brushes. You can go long. These ones will hold more paint, so you'll do longer lines with them. These ones, the shorter ones, will do shorter lines but more precise detail. So kind of depends on what kind of thing you're painting. If you're doing a lot of small detail, like something like this lighthouse where I'm doing all these little lines, you know, up in here, I'm going to choose this brush over this one. If I'm doing trees and things where I'm doing lots of long lines and I want lots of paint on here and don't have to reload very often, then I'm going to choose a longer liner. So it's probably good to have one of each in your toolbox. This one's a 18-aught short liner. This one's a script liner number 2. The script liner, just longer. Sometimes they're called riggers. The riggers are usually thicker, but they come to a really fine point. But yeah, and then there's also one that's just called a liner, period, that is actually kind of in between these two, and I like it a lot. It's probably my favorite. Let me find it, if I can find it. There we go. Nope, that's not it. Right here. So the liner, they don't look very hot right now, but when I water them down, they'll come to a point there. You have to, oopsie, that one's coming apart there, so I obviously didn't clean that one very well. They don't last long, so just kind of know that going in. This one is going to last, just a few months probably, the way I use them, because that paint gets trapped down in here. And on a bigger brush, it's not as big of a deal, but on a small brush like this, you're really going to, it's going to start fanning out on you. So I'm gonna get rid of that one totally. I'm not gonna put that back in my thing, but I like this one, the number 1. It's similar to the script liner, you can see, but it's a little bit shorter, and I can still get pretty good detail with it, good small lines. But depending on how big your lines are that you're wanting to do, the smaller sizes, 18-aught, here is going to be a lot thinner, have a lot less bristles, so you're going to get a much finer line. Another thing that people do with the liner brush that they may not know is the way you're holding it. You really should hold it straight up and down to the canvas. You should be holding it so that, let me do it here so you can see what I'm doing. Holding it so that it's...
I can do side cam.
I can get it on paper here. I did a little a short lesson on liners too. If you want to look at on my TikTok and on my Instagram page in my reels, I have a little mini lesson on liner brush. But you need your fluid, your paint to be as fluid as milk, almost translucent. So using a paint like that's already thinned out is really helpful if you know you're going to be doing lines. So having like a fluid acrylic in black and white is what I would kind of start with, and just have those two colors, and then you can add it. I could add black to this in a darker color, or add white to my lighter color to make sure that I have the color saturation, because the more water you add, the more transparent it's going to get, you know. But you do need it almost transparent with a liner brush. And then you need to hold it upright so that just the tip is touching the canvas. And so you want to use your finger here to rest on it and make sure that you've got a good range of motion with your hands. So do it so that you can do a nice smooth line with no interruption in your hand. You can practice it ahead of time. And then as I touch down that brush, I'm not pressing down at all. I'm just barely touching the tip of the brush to the page. And that way I get this nice soft line. Now, if I want to move it around, I can just kind of, the way I'm just doing the barest little tuck with my hand, but I'm not pressing down harder or anything. I'm keeping it the same distance away from the page so that I can control that line and keep the thickness of the line the same. Now, if I want to do a tree branch, say, I can kind of be a little bit more jerky about the way I, you know, move my hand, but I still haven't pressed down at all. And if you're having to press down to get your line to come off on your canvas, then you have way too much thick paint on your brush. You shouldn't have to press down at all. I'm not pressing down at even a little bit. I'm just barely touching down that tip of the brush, and that brush is going to do all the work for me. It does take a little practice, and it does feel a little bit weird because you're kind of cramping up your hand like this. But if I try to do it like this, if I'm holding my brush this way and try to get a straight line, if I hold it like I do a regular, you know, brush where I'm, you know, maybe painting, you know, something else, I'm not going to be able to get a straight line. I'm not going to be able to get a thin line because I'm automatically trying to do the right thing with my hand, but you get the idea.
Yeah. And
it has to do with the angle that you're doing. If I'm trying to do it like that, I'm not going to be able to get a good smooth line. If I hold it straight up over it and barely touch down my hand is gliding along. I have not moved my hand from its position. I'm just going straight over where I want to paint. And I'm able to get all these really nice smooth lines because I'm not holding it at an angle, straight up and down, very thin paint. And then it doesn't matter. You can do these kind of lines with really a round brush too, should be able to get thin lines. Sorry, that was a longer lesson.
Yeah, and I've shared in the chat the link to the video that you did this tutorial on. So
okie doke. Sorry. All right, let's go back. Get this done. Yeah, we're running out of time, aren't we? Sorry.
That's okay. You get excited about it and you're passionate about it, so I like it.
Good. But yes, I need to get this done. I'm gonna be here past Mark's bedtime.
Oh, I'll go to bed.
Getting some. Yeah, you just leave it for me to close it up. Okay. I'm gonna glaze over my water here with a little bit of this blue. I'm gonna tint it up a little bit. This will do the same thing as the rocks did. Kind of just meld all those colors together. I'm not going over my lightest areas, but I'm just kind of adding those shadows to wherever I feel like I need them in my water. I'm going to go in over that area, so let's go ahead and go quickly here. So I didn't know my question was going to make me stop painting and ask me a question.
So at the end of the
I don't
day,
have to stop painting.
You know, there are, you know, different levels of quality of brushes, but first try, like you said, getting a little wetter paint first.
Well, yeah, if you have a bad brush, you got to buy a quality brush. Don't buy a cheap liner brush. Don't buy any cheap brushes. You're just going to have bad results. But especially with a bad liner brush, like you won't, if it's not coming together here for you before you even start, it's never going to come together for you on the canvas. You know, you're never going to have good results with it. So, yeah. All right. I'm just gonna go quickly here. I was wasting too much time there. Not wasting time. It's never wasted time. I'm teaching, but got off on a tangent there. Okay, there we go. Good. You get the idea. Let's go ahead and fill in our house and lighthouse. So I'm going to use a little bit of this blue-gray, I think, maybe a little bit more of the blue, but I'm going to make my lighthouse gray. And I just need it a little bit darker than the sky behind it. That looks pretty good. This is not the brush that I need for this, though. I don't know why I'm still using this brush. I need to switch brushes. That's not dark enough. You see how it's just kind of melding in? I'm going to go a little bit darker with it. But let's go ahead and grab the, let's go use the round brush. This is a 2 round. So let's go a little bit darker gray. There we go. This side is the darkest side. And then noisy neighbor. Again, a little bit of that lighter color. I think I want some of that unbleached titanium, so I'm thinking maybe a little bit warmer white. Here we go. And we don't have to put in all the detail. Just get it close. Your eye's gonna fill in the rest. You don't have to have it perfect. I watch James Gurney. If you want a treat, go and watch him. He's super talented on YouTube, and he paints like, well, he's known for his Dinotopia, his dinosaur. I think that's how he got famous, but he paints these cityscapes and things, or, you know, sometimes landscapes, but he'll go out and just, you know, paint a city scene on the street, and his lines are never perfect. You know, I'm always like amazed when I watch him, because he never has like perfectly straight lines or anything, but the scene always looks very realistic. And it's amazing what your brain will kind of fill in the gaps. As long as you get kind of your main areas right, the brain fills in the rest for you. So don't worry about being perfect when you're painting these. Just get it close enough. Do your best. It's art. It's all subjective. Even the best artists out there, he's deliberately kind of not messing up, but, you know, deliberately being a little bit kind of sketchy in the way he's painting it, and it's his style. And, you know, I think that he's an expert at doing just these little suggestions of lines and things and having it look realistic from a distance, you know. So just get it close. Look at it from a distance every now and then. See if you're getting your values right. Your values, your dark and lights are more important than perfection in your lines a lot of times. Right, so I'm going back in here and just making a little bit darker right up underneath where these edges are tucking in. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think we got it fairly close to the original color. And then let's go ahead and use some of that darker color. I added a little bit of brown to it too in some places. So this one's kind of like the mid-tone. This one's the lightest tone, and I'm going to get a little bit more of the light maybe a little bit of white with my unbleached titanium, and I'm going to highlight the little lines coming down here. There's a little kind of seams in the supports as they're coming out. And maybe a little bit there. I used black for the windows. Okay, looks good. Now let's use this lighter color along that beam that comes across the top here. So there's a highlight that's hitting that, coming across right there. And then let's use a little bit of the darker color to do the, oh, you know what I didn't do? This part's supposed to be the sky. Through the lighthouse there. Forgot the sky. So we'll just kind of try to get some of the white here. Dab that in. This part here, and the lighthouse, the sky's peeking through. A little bit more white than that. There we go. Okay, that looks better. Get a little bit of black or the darker gray, doing the outside lines. There's some of the lines around it there. And if you're really bad at lining and don't want to do this with a liner brush, you can use a pen. Just make sure you get an ink that's waterproof when you're working with acrylics. But this is a uni pen, and you can get some pretty small lines with it. Works really good for this kind of thing, and very, very easy to get your tiny details in with a pen. You don't even have to worry about a liner brush at all. This one's a Pigma 0.01. So the ones I normally use here, these ones are 0.7 or 0.7 millimeters. So this one's 0.01. You can see how much smaller it is. Tiny little one. But I happen to have one of these. These ones are a little bit easier to come by and less expensive. And just look for the Uniball. I'm not sure exactly how you say them, but they work great. All right, getting some. Now I'm going to make that red. That is my lighthouse color. Going to get the Cadmium Red Light and the Quinacridone Magenta. Mix those two together. There's a little bit of a overhang here where it comes around. And then the cap. And then there's a little teeny tiny weather vane at the very top. Okay, that's all I'm going to do. Let's do our house. The house roof is kind of lighter. It's hitting, the light's hitting it. It's probably the same color as our lighthouse, but because it's angled, it's catching more light. So it looks a little bit lighter. Get a little bit of that darker red for maybe the base of it. This is the same color we used in our rocks here. And then use the same gray that we used on our lighthouse, maybe a little bit of that warmer burnt unbleached titanium, mixed in with the white to make it a little bit warmer gray. Get the black, fill in my window with the black. That's about all I'm going to do with it. I'm not going to maybe go in with the black and do a nice dark shadow underneath the roof line there. Kind of got a little bit of watery paint on here. I'm going to fix my window there. Okay. Get a little bit of my highlight color, my lighter color. Just going to come down, add a little bit of that. All right. We're good. Now there's a lot of like weather instruments here too. So if you want to do some of those, you can. I might just do like one or two, but I don't want to have a ton of little things on here. But it does make it a little bit more realistic looking.
And what is the bright orange that you're using?
That's Cadmium Red Light.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. You could use Pyrrole Orange too if you wanted to. I've been using Pyrrole Orange more and more lately. Okay, let's add our trees and we'll be done. So I'm going to get I'll go ahead and use this brush to do my trunks, and I'm going to use up my black and Ultramarine Blue. I need a little bit more of my yellow oxide. Really wish I'd selected a Indian yellow hue instead of the yellow oxide. I think I would have been able to do a little bit more with it. So if you want a little bit more of a brighter teal in your water and a more like brighter green in your trees, use the Indian yellow hue instead of this yellow oxide, but I'm not going to switch it now.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking back when you mentioned it. I'm like, what is she thinking? I mean, she's gone off the rails here or something.
Yeah.
Like, okay, whatever, she's yours.
She's not going to be able to mix a green with that, but okay.
Duh.
Thank you, honey. You're so helpful sometimes.
I try my best.
Yeah. Okay, so right in here, and it's going to, it kind of does this angle thing right here. So I'm gonna go to right about here. Kind of think about where that angle is ending. Can use a little bit of chalk maybe to mark out where I want them to end. So I want one there, one here, and one up here. Okay. And then that one's at an angle. But I don't like that one. Take that one off. Do a little bit better job. I'm going to turn it a little bit so I can get a straighter line with it. There we go. Okay. This one's at an angle too, but I'm not worried about it.
We'll pretend it's Oklahoma.
Right. I'm just going to use this brush and if I tap it, it'll kind of open up a little bit. I'll end up getting kind of fuzzy ends on the bristles. So I'm going to just go ahead and use this. It'll give me a little more control over what I'm doing here. I don't mostly want it black. I just kind of wanted a little bit more of like a deep green, but I'm not getting the green when I add my yellow. It's going too light. So I'm losing the green color. Probably a little close to my lighthouse here with this too, but make sure that my branches are connected. I don't want little fuzzies off in space where they're not connected, but let's go ahead and this will help kind of push that lighthouse back if I kind of bring it over right there. Yeah, I kind of think I got this one a little closer than I want it to be, but it's too late now, so.
And if you're looking for more Evangelist stuff, I encourage you to go over to her website, thankfulart.com.
Yes.
It has all of her paintings. And it's awesome. All the
all
free
the
ones,
tutorials,
all the
yep.
tutorials. If they're Patreon supporter levels, then it will ask you if you want to join, if you're not already at those levels. It's been pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's got everything. It's pretty great.
I can say that I've heard less sighing in the last couple of months.
I've had so many fewer people contacting me. I mean, 90% of my correspondence for the last 6 years has been, I can't find the tutorial for this or whatever, and it's like, go to the website, it's right there.
Yeah,
The search engine is the main thing. I mean, the search engine is just incredible on it. It's a Netflix level search engine.
We had a person ask in chat about, have you done some impressionist type paintings?
Mm-hmm.
So I jumped over to your website, went to the videos, click, and then typed in impressionist in the search, and
Yep.
I got 3 pages of results.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's so much easier. And YouTube will it'll show you a couple of mine and then send you somewhere else. It doesn't always, their search engine, it doesn't always keep you on my page. It's harder to search in my tutorials. Like, say, if you want my tutorials, if you put in Angela Anderson
the best
impressionist,
tutorials ever.
it'll still suggest other artists. It won't just show my stuff. So it's much easier to find my things if that's what you're looking for.
Right.
Much easier.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me switch over. I'm going to try it with this brush, although it's probably going to be a mistake to change the style of it right now, but yeah, this brush is going to go a lot faster here.
Yeah, but still only that one hit when I search for tank. It must be broken.
Yeah, sorry, not that many tank. I didn't have a great demand for that painting. It's not one of my most popular ones. So if I had, 100,000 views on it, I would be like, I think it's time to do another tank. But I think it's not.
Let's see. It's been 4 years. We have almost got to 9,000 views.
Well, it's better than it was. That's for sure. Better than it was. Maybe it is time. Who knows?
Yeah, send a message. Everybody, get out there.
Hey, I get people, saying that they want like easier paintings and stuff, right, all the time. But then when I do the easier paintings, they don't get the views that these ones do that have the more detailed stuff in them. So, I do what you guys are watching. Mm-hmm. That's the main thing. The views are what guide me to what I'm,
right.
What I teach next.
Yeah.
Because I want to be teaching what you guys are interested in seeing. So the Patreon stuff is more of my indulgence. I get to kind of do more of like what I'm always asking my patrons, but I do a little bit more of sort of my things that I want to paint or try, and they're definitely challenges. I mean, the challenge videos most of the time are things that I've never painted before, or styles that I've never tried, kind of thing. So a lot of fun. All right, there we go. Pretty close to being done here, I think. The tree doesn't have any kind of highlights on it necessarily, but we could put just a little bit of them on there if you wanted some. So, we could get a little bit of the green and add a little tiny bit of white and, add just a little highlights here and there. I think that I kind of tried to go back in with the brush, but I don't know if I love these trees. They're probably not my best effort. You can see some of my other tree tutorials on my website. There you go. Type in pine trees, be able to see. I've got a lot of other tutorials where I probably do a better job of explaining them.
But I think this is approachable.
Yeah, I tried to keep it a little bit easier here. So,
let's see. So yeah, you've done pretty good. You're keeping your training in line.
I'm keeping my what?
Your training.
What training?
Line. Yeah, we're getting into Oak Island season, so we're making sure that we're getting
right under an hour.
Getting done by 8 o'clock. Yeah, good job.
Well, actually, I didn't think I was going to finish this in 2 hours, so that's good. I'm glad I was able to pull it out in the end. It's good. I'm gonna get some black and just kind of darken up just some of that. I think the black is what I needed. It wasn't too that I needed more light. I just needed more dark. I was kind of losing my shadows. Let's see how that helped. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but I can see it here in person. It was just needing a little bit more of that darker tone here and there. A little bit of that in here. Darken it up that corner there. Yeah, I mean, something like this, I could paint another hour on it and just add a bunch more fine little details. But I think we did enough to get you started on it, get you going. Try it, see what you think. I might add just a tiny bit of highlight on the Lighthouse roof and just a little bit of the red on the red here. So just kind of dab on a little bit of highlight there on that side, but I think it turned out pretty good. I like it. Really cool. I like the colors in it. Very moody. Good Halloween feeling, Sometimes a little bit more on the dark side.
Yeah, so how here in 2023, there's a little contest going on, right?
Yeah, until tomorrow.
In the Facebook group.
Tomorrow is the end, and we're announcing the winner on Friday. So we've got a little spooky art contest. I don't have an example.
Yeah, we don't have it here,
but yeah, that's going on. We're going to give away a bunch of really cool. We're going to give away. Well, I didn't end up using it today, but we're going to give away some of the long-handled VelvetTouch brushes in a set, and some paints and some canvases.
Thanks to Princeton.
All from Princeton. Yep. Yep. So yeah. Be sure to check that out if you're part of my Thankful Art group or not. You can join it.
Yeah.
And still time, but you take a thrifted art and you just add ghosts and whatever to it.
Halloween-y things.
Yeah, Halloween themes. Make it a little. It's a kind of a trend going around. You've probably seen it on TikTok or whatever. But we're allowing digital art, so you don't actually have to have a physical piece of artwork. You can just alter some digital art and
and in the tutorial that goes with the thing, you showed how to do the digital art,
right? Yeah, so it's in the group helpful. There.
Yep.
So yeah, if you want to watch that, if you're interested in using your iPad or tablet to kind of create art too, it's a good little mini lesson there, free. All right, there we go. I'm still kind of not happy with my trees, but I think I would have made this one a little bit wider if I'd pushed that over a little bit. I feel like I've got a little too close to my lighthouse, so I couldn't widen out that trunk a little bit. But if I'd moved it over to about right here, I could have had a little bit more tree shape, you know, see how it's kind of like this. I think I would have preferred the top of it to be over here, but
And
too late now.
real quick
But-
on the contest,
Oh,
what time does it end? So it ends tomorrow. Is it midnight tomorrow?
Midnight
night, our
tomorrow,
time?
yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
midnight Central Daylight
right, and then
time,
that
US.
just gives me a day to kind of look them over and decide.
So about 20.
There's not that many. I mean, you got a good chance if you get it in, because there are not that many entries. There's probably, I want to say, a dozen, something like
Ooh,
that.
what?
So you got some pretty good chances of winning.
So you're
if
saying there's a chance.
there is a chance.
I like it.
There's a lot of really good entries already, but like I said, you know, it's not closed yet. So
28 hours from now,
yep.
you can find, you know, if you, like Angela said, if you can't find it in a thrift store, then you can get something digitally downloaded. And
Gifts, the prizes are. I don't know what I did with them. They were sitting over there.
I sold them.
You saw.
I was making some money
So
on the
what happens
side.
when I clean my studio out? There's the brush set. I don't know where the paints went to. That's a little set of paint.
Is it right there?
Oh yeah, there it is. Yep. Yeah, there's the paints right there. So, and then a bunch of canvases. These canvas panels, different sizes, and some regular canvases.
Oh.
In I think this size. So yeah, lots of good prizes. Really fun stuff. All right.
Well, I hope you
Juicy.
give this a try.
Huh? Yeah, definitely.
Share it in the Facebook group.
Mm-hmm.
The links are down below. Also to Amazon and Blick and all those places, or you can buy some stuff. And
Yep.
thank you to the supporters on Patreon that help keep all these videos free.
Yep. Yeah, they do. They're great.
They are more than great.
More than great.
They are amazing.
Our $10 folks were champs, because last month I had surgery and I hardly lost any people. They all kind of just stuck with me, even though we didn't get a
Didn't do any
regular
videos,
lesson,
yeah.
the full lesson. I only had 1 week that I could paint before I did my surgery, and they were very, very sweet about it. We did some chats instead, but it was very good. So we've got some great patrons, some folks that have been with us for several years, and we have a lot of fun in that group too. We have our own Facebook group for the $10 level ladies, and those videos are much more in depth. I do much more of the design process with them and show them, you know, kind of how I edit, how I make a composition. We've done all kinds of things that we take multiple images like this one that, you know, was probably 12 or more images, and made it all into one, and made changes and decisions with it as we go along. So they're usually, you know, 8 to 10 hour videos, broken up into 1 to 2 hour segments, you know, each week. So anyhow, yeah, lots of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, check that out, Patreon, or you can go to my website, like Mark said, thankfulart.com, and it has all the links to Patreon and everything else, and you can see all the videos that we've done. Put in challenge for the $10 level, you can see all of those, and put in bonus for the $5 level, and you can see all of those. We've got several, almost 100 of each at each level. So lots of videos, lots of fun projects that we've done over the years. So, all right. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for watching. Again, we really appreciate you hanging out with us live. It means a lot to us. You guys are our second family. Yeah,
Exactly.
It's great.
It's
so,
good therapy for me.
Yeah, very much, very much. Mark looks forward to it. I do too, but he likes to chat with y'all. So we really appreciate you hanging out with us again, and we'll see you next time. Bye.